I want to take you to a moment in time where a prominent leader actually listens to one of his brand new workers. He hears him out, he sits there, he listens, and then it changes his life forever. This leader's name is King Lamoni. You know the man. We all know the story. Ammon comes, chops off a bunch of people's arms, throw it before the feet of King Lamoni. He's converted to the gospel. But who was King Lamoni really? Today, I want to talk to you about the life of King Lamoni before, during, and after his initial conversion. Because I love the Book of Mormon, and because King Lamoni is one of my greatest heroes, because I've spent a lot of time studying him and just the people of the Book of Mormon, I hope that you can be able to gain more insight into his life, and I hope that you can take some things with it into your life as well. So, who was King Lamoni before he ever met Ammon? So we can get some basic things from the Book of Mormon. We know that he was the ruler in the land of Ishmael, and we also know that he was a descendant of Ishmael, the father-in-law of Nephi. We also can see kind of how much power he had. He had horses, he had chariots, he had sheep, he had lands, he had servants, he had a lot of nice things. From some scholars, we can see a few more things. For instance, we know and we learn that he followed those traditions of the Lamanites. Hugh Nibley refers to one specific tradition, and that is the tradition of murdering people. So that's kind of a crazy tradition, isn't it? And that tradition was basically what he referred to as the bloody fun of famous basketball games played in the great ball courts of the ceremonial complexes of Mesoamerica. And that's from his book, The Prophetic Book of Mormon. And he refers to basically the concept that either the losing team's captain lost their head or the whole team lost their head. So that tradition where King Lamoni kills his servants is actually a very common Mesoamerican practice. Another tradition that he followed was the tradition of marriage. That's something that John L. Sorensen refers to in the Echoes and Evidences of the Book of Mormon from the Neil L. Maxwell Institute. We learn from that basically that marriage was something that was done to show that power and that prominence, and to also build communication networks with other cultures. Kind of binding. Basically, what John L. Sorensen says is that that's what King Lamoni did. He was trying to keep that tradition up. So that's interesting to note that King Lamoni bought into those kinds of traditions, and he kept those traditions of his forefathers, or of the Lamanites, really. Another thing that we can see about King Lamoni that's actually really interesting is that King Lamoni was a family man. He had a father, and he had brothers, and he was actually planning on going to meet them while Ammon was there. So we know that he had that relationship with his father. And when Ammon came to teach him, we learned that his father actually taught him about God, because he refers to having recognized the Great Spirit that his father taught him about. So his father actually installed that concept of religion into his son. Another thing that shows us that King Lamoni was a family man was that he had a wife, and his wife cared about him. Because when he thought he was dead, she didn't want to believe him. She was right. And he also had children. So basically we can see just a few things about his life beforehand, which was that he had a lot of power, he was a great ruler, he sold into those kind of wicked cultural beliefs and practices of the Lamanites, and he had a family. He was a family man. He cared about his family. So, what happened? What did Ammon do for King Lamoni? We all know the story, but something that I think is really interesting to point out is that process of going from faith, repentance, baptism, to conversion. And that's something that we see take place. When Ammon chops off those arms and the servants come before him, automatically King Lamoni has faith. He has the wrong kind of faith because he thinks that Ammon is God and so when Ammon comes and teaches him, and he tells him, well, I'm not God, but I'm doing this in the name of God, he teaches him the whole plan of salvation lesson, and King Lamoni believes everything. And he cries out, "Oh Lord, have mercy." And we see all that happening in the Book of Mormon, that conversion process. And he's totally changed, and he's baptized, and all these people. So we see that he has that change of heart. We see that step. But what evidences do we see after that change of heart is real and it's true? It's interesting to kind of note what happens to King Lamoni's people. Those people in King Lamoni's kingdom is completely changed. He creates freedom. He makes a church, and not only is it the freedom of religion, but it's really freedom in general. And it says that he taught his people, so he gives them an education. Something interesting to note is that King Lamoni actually came up with that name Anti-Nephi-Lehi that we're also familiar with. And it refers to those people as being very industrious and having this communication network with the Nephites. So here is this group of people that is murderous, idolatrous, not really that well educated, and all of a sudden King Lamoni's change. Educated, open networks with the Nephites, industrious, free people. So that's a major shift that we see. And we see that King Lamoni was really converted in one example that I would like to give. And that's shortly after his conversion. Ammon comes to him and says, "Hey, my brothers, they're in prison, we need to go save them." And King Lamoni says, "Well, how do you know this?" And Ammon tells him, "God told me." And King Lamoni leaves him right away. He goes, gets the chariots prepared, and they go out to save Ammon's brothers. And along the way, who should they meet but King Lamoni's dad? Now, on my mission, I had this girl that I taught, and her name was Lucia. And after she was baptized, her family was so mean. They bashed her and bashed her and bashed her, and they were very anti. And that's kind of the same thing that King Lamoni experienced. His father was confronted by this Nephite who had been this enemy of the people for decades, generations, that they had this very, very negative feelings towards each other. And he actually tries to kill them. And King Lamoni stands strong. And he defends this Nephite. And that kind of shows, that really shows that conversion that he had to the gospel. And it's interesting to note that the last mention of King Lamoni is in the Book of Mormon. Is when Ammon goes and travels to those people and meets with King Lamoni, and they discuss what they want to do with the Lord. As we know, the anti-Nephi-Lehites, there wasn't a single soul, the Book of Mormon tells us, who wanted to fight. They laid down their weapons. That really shows that huge difference, that huge shift from being willing to murder servants, not even being willing to go to the war. What happened to King Lamoni after? We don't really know. It's possible that some of his relatives were among the 1,005 who were killed for the truth. Maybe his sons or his grandsons were part of the 2,000 who could not die for the truth. We don't really know, but there are some things that we do know. And that is that conversion changed King Lamoni. It's kind of like a light. We have this light, and right now it's turned off. It doesn't really provide light. But then, we turn it on, and all of a sudden, look how much good it's doing. Oh, we can see. We can see the truth. We see everything around us. That's what it did for King Lamoni. And he provided that light to everyone around him. So what has it done for you? Have you had that conversion to the gospel? Have you been able to be that light source for someone else? Think about it. How has it changed?